Okay, so people can hear us now, I guess. We good?
We're good.
Can you guys confirm that we're live? Mike is not miking, somebody said.
Gotta love the live technical difficulty.
Okay. Can you hear us now? Is it better?
Testing.
Test. No, here's Arthur. Somebody replied. Better, but the microphone picks up the surrounding.
Is that better? Testing.
Cracking noise in the background. Mic is very bad. Better? Is it better? Matt's mic is better.
Yeah. All right.
Better, but still background noise. So let's not do any noises then. And
All right. Let's do it.
yeah, can we talk together? Can we just people will tell us if we're good?
Yeah, as long as you guys can hear us, I think that's
Okay. As long as it's we're gonna record it also, so later we can share it with the studio quality if there is any problem. Okay. Thanks for joining us. I think we won't wait for more people because you've been the one waiting for us. Sorry for that. So today we're talking with Matt, head of growth at Wispr Flow, previously #1 Superhuman performance, with news also that he would like to share. And
later on.
later on, Matt, you wrote recently that most AI wins looks like a theater. 10 drafts of emails, 40 ideas, hundreds of generated pages, but without any leverage, that this is just like some kind of an inventory. How do you recognize AI theater in growth?
Yeah, I think with the advent of AI, it's become a lot easier to do tasks, right? We can draft an email, we can ask Claude to send that Slack, but I think stepping away from the task itself and looking at the workflow is the biggest difference, where everywhere on X and everywhere on LinkedIn, you see people screenshotting something that they say they automated, but really what they're showing is the one output of something they made that turned into something you can see. The way that I see true AI workflows is exactly that. It's a workflow, it's a system that builds and evolves over time, that essentially it replaces the need for you to focus on the task, because it's load bearing, it has all the moving pieces figured out where it can go wrong, and it's a living, breathing thing. If you build something and you don't end up using it, you actually haven't gained anything, right? It's a shiny object that you automated, this one small thing that is not actually valuable to you. And that's the theater, right? Like that everyone tells you, comment below and I'll give you this thing that does this thing, right? And, I'm definitely, part of the party of like, I'd love to see what other people build, but it's always very much surface level. And then when you have to go and apply the tool and use it day to day, see where it breaks, give it that feedback loop, that's where it becomes like the real marker of true usage. And that gets usually lost in the sauce, as they say, right?
So instead of download those 250 skills, comment growth, you would rather go load bearing, content stacking, and survive being wrong. Can you elaborate on being wrong?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, the whole purpose of starting the workflow is because you have a problem, right? Where you get, let's say, thousands of cold emails and you want to prioritize which ones are actually worth touching, right? And you want to take a step back and analyze all the inputs and the outputs and the entirety of the system, right? And that's why I think when you're hiring for the AI native era, you're not looking for, hey, what do you do in ChatGPT? But you're really, in the same way that you hire engineers, you're looking for systems thinking, right? And within that, you try to understand all the moving pieces. And from those moving pieces, you can develop that full workflow. And something is going to go wrong where you're going to get AI slop, right? It's obvious, right? Without the context, without the feedback loop, it's not necessarily going to work well. So you're meant to see mistakes. But the biggest pitfall is then saying, okay, you get the AI slop, let's say it goes into a Notion, then you go into the Notion and then you edit it yourself. That's the worst thing you can do, because you want to actually give feedback using Wispr Flow into your agent of choice and tell it why it's slop, why it's wrong. Give it a good example. And through those iterations, you're actually going to end up at proper value, that it's something that you'll actually end up using.
Okay, so two questions to that. I hope you can hear me, because I still receive feedback that I'm inaudible and terrible, and I hope it's gonna work now if I'm closer. But my question would be, how do you pick the first use case in your growth loop? Because you couldn't start from like building the whole operating system. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it really comes down to like, what are some of the most painful things that you have in your day, and like start with the ops and the admin things. That's like usually where like most of your day trickles away. So the first thing at Wispr, when I onboarded people onto what I call our marketing OS, it was essentially taking an idea that they had into a spec that then got assigned to the right person in linear and then sent them a message, right? So it's the admin of taking an idea and then assigning it to someone that is, let's say, the next person that needs to make that idea a reality. So you'll see also what I just did, right? I stepped back and said, okay, we gotta go from idea, I need to have a spec. And then from a spec, I needed to turn that into a linear ticket. And then from that linear ticket, I need to make sure all of the context is in there. And then I need to go and paste that link into Slack and message the person. All of those intermediary steps probably take me 30 to 45 minutes. And if you can build a system around that where it takes your idea, it follows all of the other specs that you've built, all the other context that you provide, the way that you write linear tickets, the way you write a Slack message, then you can collapse that 45 minutes maybe into 10 minutes and a review cycle. That like you still make sure that everything is in the tone, it's not missing any details, but you remove those kind of connecting steps that like essentially break your flow. So that's like one example where like if you look at your workflow, find the kind of like most painful things that break you out of the actual deep work and start there. And that's really where you'll evolve the OS and the operating system of the work that you have.
Mm-hmm. And so most of the things that you've described, they're like personal productivity gain. You went through decreasing from 45 minutes to 10 minutes, but you've built something bigger, as I understand, the marketing OS. It goes beyond that, and it makes your whole team operate differently. What's the moment when AI stops being personal productivity tool and becomes a system?
Yeah, so I think the journey has been like the ChatGPT moment, and really where Claude stepped in. Everything was single player, right? Where you're either in the terminal, you're in the IDE, or you're in the desktop app for the respective tools. And you have your own personal skills, you have all your personal memory and your personal context. So I had to go through this myself where I onboarded onto Claude like way earlier than the kind of like 4.5 Opus moment. So I already had like some kind of file system and MDs. But as that, grew and evolved over time, I had a personal operating system. And then I had to take a couple days of work and say, okay, how can I make this multiplayer? And the base answer to that was, Git controlled for the folder system and a basic system of PRs. But the most important thing is that the context that people were going off of, whether that is up-to-date reporting, up-to-date list of sponsors, or amount of marketing spend that we had in a certain channel, lived inside of the folder system. And there was essentially like a daily promotion of those PRs. So then anyone that was also working out of the file system on their computer had the day's local essential context. So that was like that first step of going into multiplayer to essentially ensure that each individual was going off of the same context layer. And that was the biggest difference, right? And that's where it stops being single player, is where you democratize the context. And then when people are using skills, which are also get controlled then, so you don't have to, hey, here's the .md, load it into your system. So anytime you make updates or improve a skill, it becomes better in that way. So that was like the progression of onboarding our marketing team into the marketing OS. So that's how we've kind of at least started making it multiplayer, which honestly isn't a perfect kind of part of the world, but it definitely removes the onus on the individual of doing all those activities. You can send it to other people as well.
And you've been running solo marketing at a company that was growing like 30% every single month. Did you build it yourself, or you had a team of developers building this for you?
Yeah, no, it was entirely self-made, homegrown, daily. So the story also around that is that Artur is framing. So up until December of this past year, I was the one person on the entire growth and marketing team at Wispr that was doing execution. So I was running a multi-million a month budget, running all of our experimentation on Meta, all of our Google ads, all of our LinkedIn strategy, all of sponsorships, all of podcasts, and everything in between. All of our website, all of our web experiments, end to end. And the only way I could do that is to start to AIify and agentify my work. Otherwise, I would have lost my mind a very long time ago. So it was, and it's very much to your earlier question, where I know I had a hard problem to solve to manage all of these things. I automated reporting. I automated keyword research. And I started by channel daily finding the things that I wish there was a way to automate this. I wish that I could take all of the admin that I simply don't have the hours in the day to do. And one by one, day by day, I improved the system, and I entirely built it by myself.
Okay, good one. So I'm thinking about an ROI of such marketing OS, because purely it was built by desperation, not by deliberate strategy, from what you're saying. And you could, Wispr Flow has money, right? You could have come to the CEO and say, hey, I need to hire someone. How were you thinking about ROI of building this and spending effort onto that versus scaling the team?
So yeah, I think the easy answer is always to hire someone to do it, throw money at it and do that. But at the end of the day, then you don't actually understand what the needs are. Because if we did kick off that project where it was, okay, we're going to hire what's now called a marketing engineer or someone that's going to do that kind of, let's say, agent framework for the company. They're going to get onboarded. They're going to take 2 or 3 weeks to understand the company. I'm gonna probably take 10 to 20 hours. Them interviewing me, understanding. Oh, what's your workflow? Oh, what's this? Can you explain that? Like, what's the math there? Like, why are you doing that? A million of these questions, and the time to value would have been way longer than me saying, okay, like I have a need, and from need you actually get the best results because it has to be right. You said this load bearing, right? It had to actually execute on my day-to-day work. And that's the litmus test. And that's where like a lot of theater comes in, where people say, hey, I have this workflow, and then they're not using it themselves. So then like, how is it an actual system?
Makes sense. That's a bit contrarian to what I've heard in San Francisco talking with people from Vercel or Entropic. Vercel said that they shadow people. They go, like Stripe even has a role called forward deployed marketing specialist, something like this, that they hire for this. And they would actually say that you need to spend like 2 or 3 weeks watching the person, not asking the question, then doing this job for 4 weeks, and only then start automating. But in your case, that's just not possible, because that would mean that you would need to give a full responsibility to the dev, right?
So, I mean, I think for it's probably a little bit different because they already have some systems, right? This was like, I'm talking September, October of 25. This is before the Claude boom that I'm starting to build the beginning. Like Claude Code already existed. It didn't work really well, but I was starting to use it that way. At Wispr, we've hired someone to do exactly what you're saying, right? Shadowing people on the marketing team. And that's not going to be my full-time job. That's not like what my role there is. But at the end of the day, I think you already need something in place to even see that the team is ready to do some adoption. And then like with at least a skeleton of groundwork, some workflows that are automated, then you can shadow the person and build way better systems, way like more tailored approaches to them. So I'm not going to deny that is that's the strategy for the bigger org, right? But when our marketing team is 20 people, I can probably get 50 to 60% of them at least saving 20 to 30% of their time with just a little bit of effort, taking my workflow and then assigning it with some customization to them. While like at a Vercel or a Stripe, they're ginormous orgs where like they have a mandate to be AI native. So the only way they can actually do that is have someone babysit someone else and actually build workflows for them. I think that's a little bit of the difference, right? Like I think the scale and scope of Wispr, size-wise, like right now the team is about 80 people. It probably will be like 250 by the end of the year. So a lot of ramp coming. So that's why like we're at the point where pre-100, we'll start to hire some of those forward marketing engineer style people that will build the permanent system that lives on. I planted the seed. I started the system, and it was fun, being the CTO of the marketing team.
Okay, cool. So you have built it from like early discovery of the product, like on landing pages, on ads, all the way to conversion. What is your biggest Entropic bill for that, and which part of it takes most effort, and where have you seen the biggest return on the workflows that you created? And then if you could walk us through the most promising workflow that you did end to end.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Anthropic bill, I'll say pre and post Fable, because the cost is a little different there. I mean, I think at like pre Fable, like 6,000-7,000 a month was kind of like 6,000 or 7,000 monthly in terms of Anthropic. As a non-engineer, I'd say it's a pretty hefty bill. And post Fable, it's like north of 10, and that's just like obviously the orchestration layer of Fable plus them adding workflows means you want to build more workflows. There's bigger agent teams which cost a little bit more, but I think that's like it's cost in month, but I'm also compressing more work. So there's cleaner output. There's more of that output that goes in there. So like just from a bill side, like again, I think. I'm not team token maxing. I'm very much like build the thing and then realize if you can do it for less tokens is the goal. But you have to build the V1, right? So the V1 is going to be token inefficient. And then, look, can you use Haiku instead of Fable for just doing a tool, like a basic, let's say, text search? Probably the answer is yes, right? But like a lot of people are not doing that. And I will say, like, if you've built workflows, optimize their tokens because you're wasting your own money or your company's money if you're not doing that. I use this example and I'll use it again. I think the most promising workflow that I've done is in the unfortunately most boring part of go to market and like marketing growth in general, and it's the sponsorships, right? Like sponsorships and podcasts and negotiating with influencers is the most god awful thing to do because it's all over email or some platform. You're negotiating with a point of contact. They're giving you some price. You know that price is inflated. Then you essentially, okay, we're going to move forward. We move forward. We have to then sign the contract and then find out, okay, you have how many characters in your newsletter? Oh, your dimensions are different than every other newsletter. Great. Let me go to my design team and get you custom assets. So there's an obsessive amount of middle layer steps that normally this whole role of what I'm saying that I have taken on is one full-time person at every startup. One full-time person at every startup does this. And for over a year, I did that plus everything else. And we were able to scale to hundreds of thousands of dollars of sponsorship spend and analyze the KPIs, iterate on it, update the copy, and do all of that. And I think this is a good example of just I have an input, which is a contract that tells us who the person is, and it includes, I always force in the contract that give me the exact kind of copy guidelines, the link guidelines, and everything that you need. So it is in one document. That was always a forced thing that I would do. And that's where my manual process would end. And then from there, I would essentially have all of the data of every historic run we've ever had. I would know, and at the same time, we would get an audience analysis of who is this person, who's a part of their audience, what does their content look like, what is their voice, and then purely customize our tone into whatever content we're delivering, whether it's a podcast, a newsletter, or a post. And then it creates the link, it drafts the email, it auto sends it to the person. I don't even touch it. It's by going live, I don't even know that it goes live. Then another really annoying thing is when you run a newsletter and you have to associate it to a P&L. So let's say you're doing break-even CAC for your business as a SaaS. Getting sponsorship and influencer data into your data warehouse is awful because you do a data loader on a CSV. So the same system feeds the CSV that feeds the data warehouse. And again, it sounds like this boring system, but there's so many inputs and outputs that this is one full-time person that I knew that if I didn't automate this, that would become my job. And that was not a high leverage part of my job that I had to automate. So I've used the example before, but I think it's one that has a sophisticated enough workflow that you can assign to whatever role you have the thing that I'm describing, someone has this in their job and they hate it and they wish they could automate it. And taking all those steps is really, I think, the kind of secret to figuring out that workflow for each person.
So it means your job description is my opportunity.
Exactly.
Okay. And you described the end state where you don't need to push a button even to send it to negotiate, but you had to get there somehow. And what was your process as a non-technical, semi-technical, let's say non-developer person to iterate the quality, to put the human in the loop, to have a quality gates across this workflow? Let's keep the usage of the marketing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said the key point there is every time you build something that you want to be fully automated, assume check-in gates, assume human in the loop, and actually do review. The thing is, very often I've seen people do workflows that they add human in the loop, and it's a yes, yeah, great. And they don't
approve all.
Yeah, I mean, now everyone runs full auto mode, right? There's no dangers to allow permissions. They've made it a nicer mode now. But I think if you're building if you haven't stress test the system, actually do the human in the loop review, right? Actually read it and don't skip corners because it'll bite you in the ass. It just will, right? And I've used this example in the past as well, but one big gap that I had in a system that I didn't do human in the loop, and I should have, was we were doing an investor deck to our board, and there were hard-coded numbers in skills, and the 20 minutes before the board presentation, the deck had last month's numbers, and everything was wrong, and it was a miss in my workflow where I should have done that gated check and I didn't. And that's another just tip. Never hard code data. Always have some place that is let's say a context folder that has the raw data, and have some automations that run and update that if you're working out of a file folder system, because then every skill or every place that references numbers references one place. You update one place, and then you never have the bleed of, okay, a new day, we have a new MRR, new inputs, and then when you run that, it updates 100 places. It's just wasteful. But that's another example, for example.
Okay, and then you said that it was a problem with a number on the deck, and
all the numbers.
All the numbers. Yeah. So how did you feel?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think I quickly realized, and thankfully it was before the presentation. So I mean, it was a relatively easy hot fix, but yeah.
But then you say so the rule would be nothing hard coded, everything pulls from the source. How many rules like that somebody need to have in their marketing team before going live confidently? How many iterations it took you, and how many stops at the way to make it fully autonomous?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it depends on the workflow, but I would say at least a couple dozen, right, for each time, right? There's definitely you never hit 100% perfection where you could be iterating forever, but go through enough passes, and I think that also diminishes over time, because for example, you'll build a skill that simulates your voice, or for example, formats notions before you send them, because often, let's say you'll ask Claude to fill out a notion, and the notion will have paragraphs this long, or line breaks in quotations, for example. So instead of fixing that, you say, I know that you're always going to do this. We're going to build a skill that you trigger right before you show it to me, and you're going to essentially do all of this cleanup. And then if something is still wrong later on and I iterate on it, I just update that skill, and then it's that final review pass that I would have done. And that's another realization of the things that you start doing human in the loop reviewing, say all of that context and also make sure it's repeatable. If you make the same change more than once, that means it can be a skill or something that can be automated, or it's already built into the context. So it doesn't make that initial mistake, right? And that's if you have to repeat something or if you have to do a task more than once, just make it a canonical automation in some way, shape, or form, because it'll save you time later on.
Okay. And but you also said that the time saved is a vanity metric. And how does it correspond to what you just said about it saves your time, then put it to the skill? What should you measure? What is the real outcome?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone talks about time saved, but it's it's an amorphous metric, right? So because you've been able to automate one thing that essentially saves you in theory time, you're able to do other pieces of output, and that's the true value when calculating ROI, right? What else are you using that time for, and where's that investment going? Because whenever you're working in these systems, you want to go down the tree of highest leverage things, right? And the time saved is just an output. It's not the main thing that you measure, right? And I think that's kind of how I think about it. Everyone says oh, my AI saved me this much time, but is anyone working less? The answer is no, right? But that to me that means we can have way more meaningful output with the same amount of time. And that's that is always connected with kind of the vision mission behind Wispr. It's yes, I can give it better prompts, and I can dictate and talk faster. That was one of the realizations that we also had, that the words per minute and the time saved was also never what worked from a positioning or messaging standpoint for Wispr Flow. It was always the quality of the stuff that came out, or what can I do more of? I can send more Slack messages. I can communicate with more customers. I can get in front of people faster, right? It's less for me as a personal person, the kind of the time saved. It's what is that doing to the business or the team, for example?
So what can you do 1,000 times faster and the order of magnitude more of the task that you couldn't do? I wanted to also touch the multiplayer thing a bit more, because a lot of people struggle moving from this personal productivity. You described it pretty well, but designing this from a change management perspective in organization, how do you convince people? How do you make sure that they use these tools that you've built? How do you tell them that it's not taking your job, it's making you better, it's making you faster, it's making you more efficient in the output terms? How do you navigate the team around this change? Because people are afraid of cloud code and Codex taking their job.
Yeah, I think at the people have said this a lot, and I say it to a lot of people where like AI won't replace you, you'll be replaced by someone who uses AI better than you, right? And that's just the reality that we live in. And I think it's tough for a lot of teams because the people that they've hired, and like I touched on this a little bit earlier, right? Where like you're trying to make the team or the company AI native, but the honest answer is for a lot of people that may not be possible. Right, and that's kind of the point I made around systems thinking, where if a person can step back from their role and deconstruct the things that slow them down, that's how you get real adoption, because it makes them truly understand the value of a workflow or an automation of like, why am I going to AI in order to actually give it the context? And I'd say that's the first marker that there is success, that essentially a person goes to the AI first whenever they're doing a task, and it's not let me ask it at the end, right? Like you keep it as a thought partner, because at the end of the day, what you're doing there is you're building context, right? And that's also why how it becomes load bearing in the team is when people work alongside the AI at every step of their job instead of just adding it into certain times within their role, right? And the honest thing is sometimes just like people don't think that way. And that's why like there's going to be a lot of changes to the team and like adding in forward deployed kind of these marketing engineers that AIify people more slowly. I mean, it's a difficult problem. Like every company is going through this problem now.
So I'm thinking about the place where AI lives in such organization in the growth team. Because people are super used to working in CRMs, in SEMrush, in SEO stuff, right? They're used to jump into another tools and other tabs, and what you're proposing here is some kind of a queryable agent that has access to all those tools. What is your take on the perfect UI for AI coworker? Like they will live, because some people say that it will live where the work lives, but where the work lives is totally disrupted right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone is like going out to a separate tool, right? It's like you go into the ChatGPT desktop app, you go to the terminal, you have to leave where communication and work is actually happening, right? And where there's the biggest disruption right now within the AI space is that AI employee component, where whether it's Slack, Microsoft Teams, Google Workspace, some people use Zoom chat. I've been very surprised that that's where like some companies live. But if you look at the communication stack, that's essentially where the biggest disruption is happening now. So I mean, I liken this to like my journey that I've had through SaaS myself, and I think it's kind of just happened, but it's kind of the journey that I've been on. So like I started at Superhuman, and it's making an individual faster. This is pre-AI, but making people more productive in one very specific lane, and that was the time suck of email. And obviously they've added AI into that, and that's also become a very big adoption. Email assistants have started and really defined what it means to do AI productivity. Then I had Wispr Flow, which is essentially making you faster in every text box, like similar to what you're saying, where the work is, right? And instead of typing, we can talk, and we're way faster. We have way more output. We can actually speak our mind. We're not blocked in flow. And the next thing, and you talked about the kind of announcement that I had is I'm transitioning from my role at Wispr Flow as head of growth now, and I'm coming on, and have already come on at the start of the month, leading growth at Victor, which exactly sits in that lane, right? So AI employee that lives in Slack and Microsoft Teams, where the bet from my end on multiplayer AI is you want the agentic employee to be where the team spends most of their time. And most of their time used to be email, and now is Slack and Microsoft Teams messaging other people. And if that AI employee itself is also ingesting all of the messages context, and it has all the integrations, it can proactively jump in. And you don't have to query it to actually get to that answer.
Okay. But having Victor aside, because Victor is on the other spectrum of what you have built to Wispr Flow, because
Mhm.
you've built Marketing OS totally yourself. Victor is like self-serve, and I would like to focus on somebody who's realistically building this for themselves right
Yep.
now. What was your thinking process about buying versus building the tools? Because, for example, you needed to enrich. You needed to enrich a person who was the influencer you were reaching
Mhm.
to. You could use Clay, you could use Full Enrich or the other tools, or you could just build your own library. You could vibe code your CRM, or you could vibe code the dashboard, or you could use Salesforce CRM. So, what was your journey on picking the right stack for the right workflow?
Yeah. No, I think the operating system is at the end of the day like the harness, very simple harness for all the context and all the skills that are essentially locally placed, at least for me. So when it comes to the actual tooling, I don't think vibe coding everything is the best way to go. Like all of the SaaS tools now have APIs or MCPs. They are the inputs into the system. The system is still some kind of agent harness, right? Like an agent harness like Claude Code that has files and MDs, essentially inputs into all the other tools, where like in Ahrefs will obviously do SEO much better. A Profound will do much better on the AEO side. So know which software serves the best possible use cases in the lanes that you're working in, but have it connect to the main system, right? And that's how whatever workflow you can possibly have, you're still gonna be able to fully, like, you become agnostic, right? So if I use Full Enrich or the Clay API, doesn't matter, right? It's still the same operating system that I'm working in. I can plug and play between APIs and find the thing that is the most cost efficient and give me the best output. But you don't want to be locked into a vendor, right? And that's why like you always have the ability to switch, which I think is super important in today's market.
I think I've seen it like people in enterprise setup being locked in SAP or Salesforce for
Mhm.
20 years, now picking up Sierra and building all evaluations data set and every single thing
Exactly.
about their company inside Sierra. So this is like basically the next lock-in. So what is the one thing? Is it like context, the knowledge, the evaluation suits? What is the one thing that you should own from the growth perspective to be different? Because models are commodity. Like Full
100%.
Enrich is commodity. Cloud Code is commodity. What brings you? You said you should have your own IP. What is this differentiation
Yeah, no,
in the growth setup?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like all the wins, the failures, and all the things that you've done. So it's the context, right? Like it's the knowledge graph of the business and the full history of everything that has gone in. And we talked about all the work and the iterations. Like that is the most valuable thing for every operator, but also for every company, right? And going through those cycles, like you can't just magically suddenly get that, right? And I think that's the most valuable thing is having teams work in these systems, but also aggregate that context and also own all of that on-prem in some way, even if it is on folders on a computer or in GitHub or wherever else, you still want to be able to own that over time. And I think that's super important because that allows you to future-proof and switch tools and switch to a different model, right? And it's also why, like, for every company, you own your code base. Like, you wouldn't give it out to someone else.
Okay, to sum up, because we need to have some time for the Q&As. I hope you can stay a few minutes later.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
gonna be more questions.
Yeah, no problem.
So, from a career-wise perspective, you said you're not gonna be replaced by AI, but somebody who's better working with AI. What is the operator spec of 2026, and what are your criterias when looking for team members for hiring or recommending somebody to do an S-tier job in a high-growth startup?
Yeah, I think the basis is being able to be a systems thinker, deconstruct all the things that go into a certain problem, and I think all the more being T-shaped, so you have very clear depth in a very specific lane. Where I think the teams that you're hiring now, and at Wispr or any company that I've been in, what we're trying to do is fully look at who are the best people in the world at a certain thing. Are they systems thinkers? Because if we can combine them with AI, we likely will never need more than that one person, in theory, right? So from an operator side, like really try to not only have that subject expertise, but really understand all the moving pieces of the role and see where there are the biggest opportunities that are not being automated or done via AI. So I'd say that's one thing. And I think the other thing that you can't, I can't stress enough, but it's just like being ever curious and being a strong learner. Because at the end of the day, Claude, OpenAI, any of the models, they're the best learning machines ever. So even if you're at a place that you're an intermediate in something, you can become an expert in a shorter time than ever before, right? And those two things, being a systems thinker and being driven, curious, and avid learner, combine those two things and you can be a S-tier operator in any lane at any company. And the reality is, like, you have to outgrind and outwork people, but like do it intelligently. Know where you have to really put in the time and automate out the rest.
Okay. And isn't that single point of failure from like founder? There's also like, I'm asking two questions because there are people who are like head of growth, but also founders listening to us. From like founder perspective, this system thinkers is like single point of failure. So, you know, API changes, pricing doubles, and you fail it inside one closed system instead of having like great meta buyers and ad buyers. How to mitigate this risk from founders' perspective?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a good system, the person that's running it, or like, you know, there's a lot of chatter within like e-com and startup companies in the States that like have been just locked into one driver of growth, whether that's meta ads or the one trick pony, and they haven't diversified. So I think that's like, it's how you don't have the capability that you're gonna fail on that one hire, that one person, is have an amalgamation of all S-tier people and really try to be omni-channel and go to market and growth. Do everything everywhere well, and there's no one point of failure that will actually cause you to fail. And that's why like a lot of these conversations that I have, it's like, you know, like, what's the one thing that I can do now? And how stupid the answer is, like, do them all, and like you'll do them poorly at first, but like there's a place for every channel and every strategy in every business, and it allows you to like, the times are changing so fast now that like an algorithm update to Meta or some API cost that goes through the roof. Like if you just have that as your means of scaling, then you are not going to be a team that can keep up with someone that has at least risk adjusted and understand that they need to be in all places all at once. Because I mean, it's the strategy that we employed at Wispr, right? Like our rise from zero to a $2 billion valuation in the voice AI space was being everywhere all at once, trying to build the systems to be dependable over time, that no one thing, no like, you know, if we suddenly stop spending on Google, the business wouldn't break, right? Like that, I think that's an important thing.
Okay. So you touched something important about being an like a player in this play, and this is like last question before the Q&A. So you can guys start asking questions in the chat. Can you be an A player right now, living in Europe? You moved from the US to Krakow, now you live in Warsaw. It has changed a bit, but we don't have that much of inspirations to learn from, like many people like you to talk with. We don't have many product engineers. We don't have people who've seen this hyper growth. How did AI bridge the gap on becoming an A player for somebody who's entering this field, or did it make it way worse because it compounds in the ecosystem that already exists?
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, like, so, I mean, I moved from the States to Poland, like almost exactly 3 years ago. So this is like even before I started at Wispr. So I was at Superhuman at the time. And at the end of the day, it's super surprising. And you make a good point. Like there are not a lot of like true product startups in Poland and really CEE. And there's not a lot of growth, like pure play, like growth more on the marketing side, like people. And it's hard to like just look into the ecosystem. But to be honest, right? Like just based on the sheer amount of things that are written on X, sheer amount of podcasts, sheer amount of things that you can deconstruct via an LLM, like all of the information is there. And like, it doesn't matter where you are, right? And like, I'm super happy that I'm here, that I can at least plant the seed, share my very minimal set of experience over the last 3-4 years. But I think it just takes that little push for people to realize that like, it's not just the place where you are, but it's all the content all around the world. And like, for anyone that, is like a Lenny's podcast listener, there's a thing called Lenny's data that he gives to everyone that's on the Lenny's Pass. So I'll just like give one tip. If anyone's a Linux Product Pass member, you should do this. They have a MCP, but also you can take a zip of every transcript of every podcast, plus every newsletter that was ever written there. You can do this for anything, right? You can just give me a full download, and then I spun up an agent team. I gave it the context of being ahead of growth, as well as all the deconstruction of like, I want to become the best product person in the world, simulate all the different roles, and then have that agent team analyze every single transcript, every single newsletter, and turn it into frameworks. And then take those frameworks, look at my business, and tell me how I can apply them. I throw that whole thing in Obsidian, and I run a quiz system that teaches me every day on all the things that I maybe don't think about. I don't know the name of that framework. It's like one example, right? But like, that's one thing that I do just because I'm personally interested in it. I took a data set, I turned it really like digestible and tangible, and then I apply it to my day-to-day. Take that frame and do that with any topic. Astrophysics, you can learn it, right? We live in a world where anything is possible. It's just the conviction, the vigor, and the actual intent to do it.
So the agency wins here.
Yeah.
And you decomposed the system thinking again, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks,
Of course,
thanks for
my
that.
pleasure.
I'm gonna go to the Q&A. So let's start with how do you, from the oldest, how do you systematically optimize token usage? Is it A/B testing?
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's also the intention of, okay, like I started this workflow. Where was I in my, let's say, Anthropic bill at the start of this? And then where was I at the end? And then like, I'll iterate on that a little bit. I'll understand the cost of a single run. And then if it's like in the teens of dollars, all right, every single time I need to run that, I obviously need to optimize that. And it's, you kind of tinker at it over time, right? It's, let me change the sub agents to a different model. Or do I need this many tool calls? What if I had this instead of a Notion, it was in a .md? And you just kind of like play around with it. And then like you can eventually get down your token usage 50, 60% on average. So it's just like an intention, deconstruct what's possibly costing you the most. I mean, that's how I would approach it.
Okay. So I had the case with Granola as my note taker, where I connected Claude to MCP, and it was like really like, after full day of workshops, it was doing a lot of transcripts and big token usage. And I just realized how MCP works, and that it needs to take all the transcript and rewrite it instead of just pushing it right to the database. So once you see those patterns and what takes a long time and how it works, you'll be able to optimize it.
I mean, I use the same example when people are like, why are you using Obsidian or MD files? Don't you want to just use Notion as your knowledge base? And then like, I'm like, wait, you're telling me every single time you do something locally, you do a tool call that then also updates your .md, and then you make an edit and it does 16, how many times additional? They're like, oh, you're right. So let me do that at the end. I'm like, that's probably a good idea, right? Like, examples like that.
Once you commit at the end of the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the engineer mindset of like, I put up a draft PR, I iterate on it, I do some testing, and then when it's done, I submit it. It's the same thing, right? Like I'll do the work locally, I'll do all of this, and then push it out or ingest in only when I need those things.
I think there are two questions that are similar. How does one build so many systems while being sane and keeping daily operations?
Long hours. And an agency and vigor, I think, to fix these things. I've also just like, for me, it's just like it's become a passion project of like what else could I turn into a system? And like, I'll answer this question with like, I also have a personal OS. So like, my fitness, my weigh-ins, all of my trips, my financial analysis, my investments, all are systems in my Claude code. And like, I obviously did that. And like, if your free time and your like personal stuff also becomes kind of connected to your work, it has a feedback loop on it. So you have to probably be a little insane to try and automate these things. But I think, to each their own.
I think it's a follow-up question to that. I think first part is pretty funny. Let's say you work 40 hours a week. That's the first part of the sentence. I believe that's not valid. But given no matter amount you have, like how many of those hours do you spend building, fixing, or optimizing workflows?
I mean, so I think the important thing is there isn't anything that I do during the day that doesn't go through an AI in some way, right? So like if I'm looking at Meta ads or Google ads, or if I'm let's say analyzing the performance of an outbound sequence, I'll ask about the data through the AI because it has access to all of the tools, whether it's the data warehouse, whether it's a direct API connection. The surface layer is interacting with the AI. So like, for me now, it's, a bit of Claude Code and primarily, Victor in a Slack way. But that's how you bake it into the day, right? So if you had 8 hours a day, you're working alongside the thing and you're seeing, okay, I have to tweak this. I need to do this. All right. Let me jot a note that I need to optimize this later. I have to go to the next task, but like you still do at least 1 percentage point here, 10 percentage points there. You still build it into your workflow. And that's like the only way when it becomes an incremental part of your day. Also hope the API isn't down, because then you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But that's why model lock-in and you can kind of democratize that as well.
Okay. So there's like no percentage of it, but roughly speaking,
Yeah,
to give people. You say you optimize, but
I mean, let's say you're in a like super meeting heavy role where like 75% of your day is meetings. Then like you have to do a little bit of work. So let's say like at most you can probably do like if at least 10% of your day, like even 5%, right? It's the same, people tell you this rule all the time. Read 5 minutes a day and you'll read a dozen books a year, right? The same argument holds here, right? Like where like do it, like always challenge yourself of like, is there something that I can do via the system of the AI that can at least make it easier next time? And start with that question once every day and you will build the habit, just like with any piece of habit building.
Okay. Now two questions about the stack. So what is your fave stack to have outbound sales, follow-ups and deals in one, like one thing? It's connected to the question to what tools does Matt use in his daily work?
Yeah. So I mean, I think like on the outbound sales side, I mean, it depends on like the velocity and volume. I think on the outbound side, if we're just like pure play talking about cold email and some of those automations, like building your own kind of stack with Claude Code that essentially has the inboxes and warms them. Like I've done the lem list and kind of all of those, and eventually having just the system built in Claude Code is what I opted in for, because it's like most future proof. It's the most cost efficient. It gives me all the controls. I can update all the copywriting. There's the minimum like amount of tool calls. So like for that side, I also don't have a ton of volume on these, right? So like very targeted, very pointed to decision makers in this case. So like that's the answer there. But the core tool stack for me is primarily Cursor now in terms of both like pointing it straight into a GitHub or a local folder system for like one set of work. I also use Ghosty as a terminal that has essentially like shells that use different licenses of Anthropic. So like, for personal OS, I'm using a personal license. For like advisory that I do for other companies, I use a different license just to like air gap whose tokens I'm using, just for that sanity. And I'd say like the main driver of the majority of where my work happens now, it's, I've lived and breathed Slack for like a decade at this point. So I'd say like the main driver outside of a Claude Code via Ghosty, a Cursor for, the dev side of pushing PRs is definitely Victor. That kind of lives alongside all of the work, scheduled crons and updates, and it's removed having to like leave the communication to actually continue the work itself.
And do you type or do you just speak?
It's just Wispr Flow. I actually have I have a DJI magnetic mic, so when I'm at a standing desk, I don't have to. We work in like an open floor plan, so I'm just like whispering, like walking around near my computer, and I have another. If you guys are using Wispr Flow, you can map your mouse. I use the Logitech MX4,
Same.
so you have one button that starts the hands-free mode, and then you press the haptic button. I make that enter. So you go bam, you kind of walk around, you talk your talk. So you go back to the mouse, you click it again. That's the biggest unlock.
Okay. Eugene has a valid question. How does using this AI marketing OS that you've discussed change the way you approach activation and onboarding experiments compared to how it worked in the traditional growth setup.
Yeah, I mean, I think because you have the capability to send way more personalized like variations of things, right? And I think similar to the way that we've talked about throughout this entire conversation, like the systems thinking of during an activation onboarding sequence, let's say, you have all of those elements of how many pages there are, what things you're saying, in what order, the amount of options, is it use case driven or pain point driven, etc. All of those are components. And as long as you can essentially define that this is the logical combination of all of onboarding, and you have all of these components, you can run any permutation of that if you essentially allow an LLM to generate the versions A through Z for you. So, I mean, both at Wispr and now at Victor for me, everything is hyper-personalized from the add to the landing to the onboarding sequence to the first message that you get in Victor, for example. And that's based because we have a system that allows us to deconstruct all of the elements, understand what are the inputs are. Our ad names are ginormously long to allow context to continue on in. So before the age of an operating system or an OS, like any of the LLMs, you would never be able to do that with any sanity. Like you would have a whole team being like, how many more variants do I hate you? Like it's enough. But like you can test with way faster velocity, and the data is then the king of the reality, right? Like everything that you think was wrong, like, it doesn't matter. Like let's test it. So I think that's the biggest change, right? It allows you to ship these versions faster, to understand all the moving pieces that go into it, and then also analyze the data, which is always the most difficult thing. When you have so many variations, are you at stat sig? You know, what's the downstream effect? Like, did I miss anything? You have a thought partner that helps you do that.
Okay. And to follow up on those channels, our friends at Gralio asked, but before that, sorry, Toki AI friends, yes, you are a good product. Thank you for saying that we have good products in Poland as well. Gralio asked, what are your favorite growth channels today? For example, podcast meta ads.
Yeah, I mean, I think meta ads specifically for B2B SaaS is becoming, so like before even Superhuman and Wispr, I come from like agency and e-commerce, where if you look at the last 20 years of e-commerce in the US, tons of creative testing, UGC, Meta as the main driver, right? And they've run and shipped on this. Now there's Axon, AppLovin, and other channels as well. But the reason why I say that is over the last 3 years, we are now in an AI SaaS era, primarily, let's say, B2B AI SaaS. And, Wispr, of course, is a prosumer product that also leads to B2B. Meta, if I told someone in B2B SaaS, hey, Meta is going to be your main driver of acquisition, they would have laughed at me 4 years ago. And I would have laughed at them because they would have been wrong. And I'd say that's the number one channel, because even for Victor, that is a big, high ARPU B2B product that essentially absorbs itself into a team. Our main driver is Meta, right? But we run it like a prosumer, thousands of ads a month, deep creative testing, funnel optimization, which like before, that's not the narrative that you would always take.
If I don't want to make full statement, but I think like it was even like PMF driver for Jace. That was before Victor.
Yes.
Like Frederick was spending money on ads trying
100%.
to figure out the algorithm for ICP, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's actually how I started working with Fred. That he brought me on.
Okay, so that was you.
Yeah. So that
Nice to meet you.
The spending. So yeah, Frederick and I started working together in October of 25. So all of the main meta scale and spend was me behind the scenes. That then led to Victor, and now now I'm fully full time there. But that's been the journey that we took there. So
Insane. Oh, thanks for that. Just the last question. It's rather a wish. People hope that you have a no phone retreat one day. Is that true? You're gonna have? How do you take care of your mental health?
Yeah. So I mean, my mental health is actually be a near term thing. I after this wrapping a couple meetings, and I fly to Tomorrowland tomorrow. So Thursday through Monday. No phone, no work. It's been automated through a lot of people, and they have contacts. So, take the time. Like, go on vacation. I love traveling. I'm completely detached when I'm offline. When I'm offline, I'm offline. it's rare nowadays where I'm usually plugged in. But yeah, like take the time, touch the grass, reset your mind, because when you're just constantly thinking about it, you're also missing things. Like Daniel Kahneman, have some passive thinking, go around the world, see different things, and you'll come back stronger and better. So I'm going into a reset moment now.
Cool. Enjoy Tomorrowland.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you all for active participation. I don't know which camera I should look at. I hope here. Thank you. And we're gonna post it afterwards. Is there anything you would like to share with people? Any resources?
No, I mean at the end of the day, find me on LinkedIn, Matt Swulinski. I'll be posting some stuff, his workflows as well. But I mean, last tip to leave with is like, don't be terrified by all of this. Just like have fun. It's treat it as a hobby, treat it like a game, and then like you'll see the fruits of the labor come through. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.